Hi, good evening everyone, and now, let's go to today's report, which is from Mr. Fabiano, and this happened to him in the city of Batatais, which is in the state of Sao Paulo, and at that time, which was in the year 1999, Mr. Fabiano was just a teenager. And already starting my story, is that at that time I was a teenager and lived with my parents on a farm where we had many chickens, and sometimes my father even sold these birds. Well, one night, it was almost time for me to go to sleep, and so, as usual, I went out in my backyard to go to the wooden bathroom, which was outside the house. While I was using the bathroom, suddenly I saw my dogs running around the property, so I started to look through the window of the wooden bathroom to see something, but I saw nothing. At that time, my dogs wouldn't stop barking, so I got curious, and as soon as I finished my needs, I left the bathroom and walked around looking for something that was happening, and as my dogs wouldn't stop making noise near the fence, so I took a piece of wood in my hands and went near my dogs, and near the fence of the farm, I was looking at the sides kind of scared, with something that could be happening there in that place, which was very dark, because there was a thicket next to my yard. While I was looking through the woods of the surrounding vacant lot, I saw some animal coats tangled in the fence wires, and for sure it was of some animal that had entered or left the place, but suddenly I saw the fence moving a lot. When I looked to the side, I saw a big black animal trying to go under the fence, and it seemed to be a dog. Well, I took a chance, and together with my dogs, I ran up to this animal, and to hit it with the wooden handle, not to let it enter my yard, but my dogs were fast, and began to bite the head and ears of this creature, and that creature turned back growling in pain, and gave up going through the fence, and that I realized that this animal was limping, and he had some problem in one of his legs. But this animal was fast and disappeared into the dark woods. I kept trying to find him, but I saw no more sign of him. A few minutes passed, and I decided to go back to my house. Then, as soon as I was walking, I heard a noise of something behind me. When I looked to see what it was, I saw a creature inside my yard, and for sure, it was the weird animal that my dogs kicked out of the property, but it managed to jump the fence. But this creature stood up and stood on two legs standing like a man, and his appearance was of a hairy animal with lit eyes. However, I saw this animal coming towards me, and it was crouching down and stood on four legs. In that hour of danger, I started to run towards the house, and I screamed for someone to help me, but I could hear the werewolf's footsteps behind me. However, I looked quickly at the beast, and luckily for me, it was running slowly because of its leg problem, and my dogs were trying to attack it too. With this, I managed to escape and went into my house, and as soon as I closed the door, I put the couch at the entrance and called for my father in screams, and he, scared and without understanding, came to talk to me, and I told him to get the gun fast, and my father, seeing that I was really scared, he ran and got the shotgun, and I told no one in my family to open the door or window, because I had just been chased by a werewolf. Then my dogs were still barking in the yard, and my father looked out the window, and saw the beast standing only walking on two legs, and still trying to attack our dogs. My father, seeing the risk, he opened the window and shot at the creature, but as that werewolf was too far away, he could not hit the beast, which ended up fleeing through the fence. My father said he had to risk and give some shots at the creature, because he thought that this beast would not leave our place, and even wanted to kill one of our dogs. Anyway, my father fired several shots in the air to scare the werewolf away, so that it wouldn't even try to come back to our property. At that dawn, I stood watch with my family, waiting for the werewolf to return. Well, we were talking, and I told how this beast appeared in front of me and chased me. I told Dad that this creature, that one of the back legs, that seemed lame, and my father confirmed that he saw through the window, and it really seemed that the animal had a problem in the legs, and that he ran with difficulty after the shot. At that time, my father got a little pensive, and then he told me something about a man that he had never seen before in his life, who bought one of his chickens in the morning, and that this man had a limp on one of his legs, which is the same left leg that the werewolf had difficulty walking, and so we kept talking about this subject until dawn, and as soon as daylight came, my father and I talked to some of our neighbors, but nobody knew about this guy who had problems with his legs. The fact is that a few days went by, and the guy we suspected, who had become this werewolf, never showed up to buy another chicken from my father. Anyway, after a long time, I still think about this creature and feel afraid, and I don't want to see another werewolf like this in front of me. And is it really that man, Menko, was the werewolf? I keep asking myself that until today, but I think so. Good guys, thanks for watching the video, and if you like the story, leave your like and subscribe to the channel, and activate the Tinkerbell notifications to receive new videos.
Fear Zone Channel, your channel of terror. Good evening everyone, and let's go to today's story that is the young Christina, and it happened to her in the city of Katu, that is in the state of Bahia, and at that time, that was in the year 2014, the young Christina was 17 years old. My name is Christina, and today I am going to tell you something terrible that happened in my life, where in a relationship that I had with a strange man, with him I discovered hidden things that few people know exist. And starting the story, I live in a humble village in my city, and this place has many simple people, which is a rural neighborhood. But what happened once, was that I was passing by a dirt road in my neighborhood, then I saw the door of a house, a guy around 18 years old, and this guy by his appearance was not from my village. I found him very handsome and attractive, and spent looking and flirting with this guy, and he certainly was new in my village, because I had never seen him anywhere. After that I went back to my house, and I couldn't stop thinking about this young man, so I got dressed and in better clothes, and I put on some makeup to attract the boy's attention. Then I went back to the street and I passed again in front of this young man's house with whom I had flirted, but he wasn't in front of his residence. Then I took a few more walks around the streets of my village, and suddenly I saw that guy walking in the distance, and when I was near him I started flirting with him. I said hello to this guy, and the guy reciprocated, and from then on we started talking and arranged to meet at night. And when I was leaving from my house, I noticed that this guy had some very large padlocks on his bag, and some chains, but I did not mind and said goodbye to him with a kiss on the cheek. When I arrived at my residence, I did not stop thinking about this date I had set, and when the night came, I went to meet this young man who was new to the neighborhood in a certain place. I arrived at the meeting and we talked a little, and began dating, and everything went well for me that night, and also, I learned a little more of his life, that this guy was from Piranha and maybe he lived in my city. Well, after a few weeks of relationship with this guy, I didn't understand that this new boyfriend of mine didn't want to introduce me to his father, and he always lied about it. He made up several stories to not introduce me to his father. But after about a month of dating, I started to notice that there were some days during the week when my new boyfriend didn't show up on some nights. And this guy said that he went out to work with his father at night. I started to suspect that he had another woman. One day I stayed hidden at a distance of about 30 meters from my boyfriend's house, and so the hours were passing and it was already more than midnight, and my boyfriend's house had all the lights off. But soon I saw a person looking through the gate of the residence, and I realized that it was my boyfriend seeing if there was anyone on the street, and he was in a strange way, looking like he wanted to hide something. Then he entered his house. I became more suspicious that he would be with some woman there inside his house, and I was already furious. I went to his residence and stood there in front looking through the gate, but I saw nothing because the lights were all off. But suddenly I heard a noise of iron chains coming from inside the house. But I was so furious that I jumped the wall of the residence and entered the backyard of my boyfriend. Then I started to hear some fast breathing noises coming from the window, and I thought that my boyfriend was with some woman in that room. So I went to that window and started to open it very slowly, to be able to see inside that room what was happening. As soon as I managed to open part of the window, I saw that the room was a bit dark, and there was only one kind of light from a lamp, but there was no bed, and as soon as I looked at the corner of the wall, I saw a huge animal that seemed to be a dark-colored dog, and it was that animal that was making that fast-breathing noise. I opened the window doors to get a better look, but this creature saw me, and it stood up and stood like a person, balancing on two legs, and I saw that it was some kind of man mixed with a dog, and the scariest thing was the glow of light that this beast had in its eyes. At this moment, I thought, for sure this beast was a werewolf, and this creature came running to the window to catch me, but the iron chains held him back. But I noticed that this beast had a kind of dog muzzle installed in its mouth that prevented it from making noise. At that moment I was so scared that I didn't want to stay in that house anymore, and realizing the risk I was running, I quickly jumped over the wall of my boyfriend's house and ran down the street. Then I arrived at my residence and stayed there in silence, just thinking about what I had just seen, and analyzed this situation, and did not tell my parents what I saw, and stayed up all night thinking what I was going to do, because I did not know what was happening and what would be the consequences of this story if I investigate, and also what kind of people were my boyfriend and his family. Well, as soon as morning came I called the guy I was dating, to meet him in a place in my neighborhood, and when the time was right we met and started talking normally, but I didn't say anything about the werewolf. And to my surprise, my boyfriend told me that he would introduce me to his father in 2 days, where he would be at his house in the evening, and that at his residence they would make a special dinner for me. I disguised myself and told my boyfriend that I would go to that dinner, but of course, and thinking to myself that I would never go to that meeting with my boyfriend's father, because he was the suspected werewolf, and maybe the two of them would be making a dangerous trap for me, but I was scared by his invitation. After the meeting, I went back to my house and wondered what I would do about it, because my boyfriend's father could be that werewolf I saw trapped in the iron chains, and also that day when the creature was in the room, I left the window open, and this boyfriend of mine should already suspect that someone would know his family's secret. Well, the day came for the dinner scheduled for me to meet the father of my boyfriend, and my boyfriend called me during the day for me to go to this dinner, and I said I wouldn't go because I had to help an aunt who worked in the city, and that I would be very busy that night. But what happened that day was that I was locked inside the house, and I saw that my boyfriend at night passed in front of my residence just looking inside my house, to try to see me, so he gave up and ended up going away. The fact is that I spent 2 days without seeing my boyfriend. The strange thing is that this guy with whom I was dating did not call me. One day a friend came to my house to tell me that the guy I was dating moved out of the neighborhood. Of course, I went to see if this story was true and walked to his house. And when I arrived at my boyfriend's residence, his house was empty and without furniture, and surely he had moved to another place. I was curious and entered the house, and in the room where I had seen the werewolf caught in the chains, I saw that on the wall of this room there were some iron rings, where they used the chains to lure that creature. However, I didn't tell anyone what I had seen. I kept this secret with me until today, and I never saw from my boyfriend again. But what I know is that these creatures exist, and maybe the boy realized that I found out about the curse of his family, and because of this he left with his father to another place. And I'm glad they never came back to my neighborhood. And that was my story. Thanks to all of you who watched this story, and if you like it, subscribe to the Fear Zone channel, and leave your like, to receive our videos every week. Until next time.